You're listening to the Akbad Show. So going forward, we're going to go ahead and look a little bit more into the menu system, but now, as you can see, we're in section number 6, okay? Section number 6 of 14. And remember, we're only in the first tab. So we covered quite a bit in the very first video about some of the things I actually use. Again, I've been using this thing for about 2 years, the a7RIII Mark III. I love the system. Right now I'm recording this on my 6300 by Sony. So I used to, just a little background information before we go any further. I used to shoot Canon for a very long time. I really enjoyed Canon. I had L glass, which is their luxury glass. I've always gotten their absolute best. And for people who know me, I still try to stick to that premise right now by getting the absolute best quality for my customers to receive. And so when I moved over to this mirrorless system, I really fell in love with it, not only with the crop sensor camera, the 6300, but when I moved over to the full frame and went the a7RIII Mark III. And I can't wait until I get my third body, which I'm not quite sure exactly which one I'm going to get. The only thing that we have such a real problem with out of my 2 years with the mirrorless system is, well, it's the menu system. And that's what we're going to cover right now. I've actually been shooting video and I've been shooting stills and been doing quite a bit with it, but been going into the menu system and only been using certain aspects of the menu system. So I'm not going to say that I'm a total expert, and just like we said in the last video, this is not going to be the most detailed video in the world when it comes down to this menu system. There are others out there on YouTube that are really detailed with some real experts who are going to break down every little nuance of what this menu system does. But what we're going to talk about today is what a professional photographer who's been using for 2 years, what he really actually uses in this thing so far. And that's what we're going to kind of talk about to my experience, okay? So again, now we're still in tab number 1, but we're in section number 6. And section number 6, it starts off with AF illuminator. Now, have you ever, as autofocus, have you ever seen where someone is taking a picture and then this light just seems to come out of nowhere on the camera and it just shines in your face for just a second, and then all of a sudden they take the picture? Well, that's the autofocus illuminator. It's like a little laser type thing that shoots out or something. I'm not quite sure exactly what it is, but I don't use it. I don't illuminate. I don't do that. I just will not do that to my clients. It's a little bit weird to do that. So you'll see that mine is turned off, okay? Now, here is an area that's really kind of interesting. It's called Face Eye Autofocus Set. So when you go in there, now I haven't played with this a whole lot. I just set it one way and it works perfect. But when we got our last update for the a7RIII Mark III, and I believe some other high-end cameras, it did have human eye detect as well as animal eye detect. Can you believe that? So that means that yes, you can set this camera up to find the pupil on an animal, and it actually works. So if you want to get locked focus on an animal, if you're taking a lot of animal pictures, yeah, that's the one you want to go with right there. You can actually set that eye autofocus and get some amazingly clear shots right smack in the eyes. And you can have your focus down pretty low too. I mean, your f-stop, you can have it down pretty low, seriously below f4, and it'll still lock pretty well. It does pretty good. And the human eye autofocus is really good on the Sony. Everybody knows how great the Sony is when it comes down to that. So that's a big deal. Let me go and turn this light up just a little bit. Another thing we're gonna do now, we're gonna get out of this, because that kind of works all by itself when you have the phone, when you have the camera in continuous autofocus. Eye autofocus and face detect will automatically kick in on the subjects that you're pointing at. It's amazing and people love it. So you're going to see there's a lot of gray areas here. We're going to go on down there. Autofocus with shutter, yes, I want that on. You have the option of on and off. I want to go ahead and have that on. I want autofocus going on while I'm hitting the shutter because things are moving and I want to be able to capture them and things like that. So I want that on. Let's go on to the next page. We're finally over into section number 7. Cool. So section 7, I have limited use on this section. As you can see right now, I have a lot of things turned off. Autofocus area register, I don't use that, not yet. It's actually quite cool. I've heard a lot about that. You can actually see some of these things on other videos or videos that I may come out with in the future, kind of talking a little bit more about these things that I don't know much about. We're going to go kind of past this page. So if you want to just kind of follow along on your camera, and maybe you can kind of see what my settings are. And we're going to kind of talk about the next page. Let's keep going. So now we're on number 8, section 8. Now, autofocus micro adjust. Now, let's say you have autofocus on. It's doing this autofocus thing like Sony is really famous for, and you think it's locked on. Well, autofocus micro adjust is you can get in there and you can actually set to where you can. You ever heard of fine tune? You can fine tune, or the camera will kind of fine tune the focus that it already thought was right, and you can get in there and you can do different things with it. I like Sony's focus as it is. I don't need any extra time for micro adjustments or anything like that going on. It can only delay me. Okay, so I don't want that. My images are already coming out way better than everybody else's. Let's just be honest, okay? And so that is one of the things that I don't really mess with. I leave that off, okay? Aperture, drive, and autofocus, I just keep that on standard. You can actually move that to silent priority, but I personally just keep it at standard. I'm just gonna kind of leave it at that. Okay, now we're in section number 9. Now in section number 9, the first thing I'm looking at here is reset EV comp. Now I have it on reset. Now the only thing I can tell you about this section, and I don't know much about it, but let's just say you have your exposure value set a certain way and you change it to a different value. This is only for people using exposure value. We'll that's a different video. If you change it, you change that exposure value to a different value, and let's say you turn off your camera, it's asking, hey, do you want to reset everything back to normal when that camera comes back on, or do you want to maintain the values that you have in there when this camera comes back on? So me personally, I just have it on reset, but that's basically what that is. And this is again for people who using EV composition. So anyway, let's go over to ISO. Now ISO, there's many other ways you can actually change ISO on your camera. You don't have to go into the menu system here and fish through all of these crazy things to go to ISO. There are other ways that you can go to ISO. For example, let's get out of this and let's say I wanted to take a picture, and right now this button here, I can hit this button here and it's going to let me go to ISO, and I can get in there and change whatever I want to change on it. Right now I'm not really doing anything, but that is another way to get to ISO. There's other ways to get to ISO as well. For example, I think that this way I can just hit the function button here, FN, and I believe in here you can go to ISO. There's another place to go to ISO, which is up there at the top. It's kind of weird. So it's kind of weird that they have it in the menu system. Is there, you can change it, but you could change it so many other places. But it is in the menu system. All right. Now, metering mode. Now, metering is going to be a little interesting for those who like to do light metering and measure the amount of light coming where or whatever. Multi is going to check not just one pinpoint kind of area. It's going to kind of check a multiple amount of area around your focus point, and try to analyze and come up with the right metering and the right amount of light or whatever that's necessary to get that shot right. So let's say you're in shutter priority or something like that. It can analyze by using its metering mode. So let's go inside. So in the metering modes, you have a couple of them here. You have a multi-metering mode, which is the one that I'm presently using right now. You do have center metering, so that's like more pinpoint, a little bit more, you know. And then this one is like spot, so you dead a certain spot. I like to get more evaluative, you know what I'm saying? I'm get way out there. Now let's go down here. So this is the entire screen average. So it just check the entire average of the whole screen and come up with something. And this is another option where it can check the highlights and stuff like that. So I, again, leave mine at multi. It seems to work okay for me. And I'm just going to go ahead and kind of leave it there until I learn a better way to do it. You know what I mean? I do keep face priority in, I keep that on. I like to keep that on. You have the option for on and off, you know, right here, and on and off. But I like to go ahead and keep that on. That's just a big deal for me because it seems to help me lock on to people a little bit better, and I just love it. I usually keep my everything here set a certain way. I did some information. I did some research and found out this information. They said to keep it right here. It's usually good on spot metering point. You have center and you have focus point link. I understand focus point link is going to be a little bit more advantageous from the way I shoot, so I'm going to go ahead and keep it that way. I probably need to learn a little bit more about spot metering. I don't use it very much. I don't know very many people who do, maybe because I don't know very many people who've been talking about it. So anyway, it's there. And we can all learn a little bit more about it if we like. So, AEL with shutter, I keep it on automatic. I don't mess with that. That's an automatic setting by default. And a lot of times I just go ahead and leave certain things that I don't really mess with. I leave them alone and just kind of play with the camera as is. I even changed the AEL button here. The AEL button is right there. I even changed it from what it really is to something else. I use it for a different purpose, actually. You can actually, I don't want to get too much into it, but later on in the menu system, you'll see it's further down. But you can move every button and its function to other buttons anywhere you want to on the camera, at wherever it feels comfortable to you. Kind of cool, right? Well, it is. And so, you know, sometimes the buttons, as they say, AEL may not mean AEL after you change up the buttons. So just remember, you can change it up. Anyway. So, you see that? I wanted to make sure y'all saw that. Let me go backwards. Exposure, standard, adjust. So if you want to change the standards on how this camera actually exposes or adjusts exposure or interprets exposure, if you hit this button, you're going to see that message. It adjusts the standards of optimum exposure. Generally, adjustment is not necessary. Basically, are you sure you want to adjust? And if you wanted to, you can get in here and you can adjust it. I leave it alone. That's just me. I don't mess with it. It works really, really well. You can get in there and play with it. So just letting you know, you can get in there and do that. I just haven't in my 2 years of using this camera. Flash mode. I use field flash an awful lot, although you can get in here and you can have some fun. I mean, you have field flash, and look at the many options. You have there's a slow sync, you have the rear sync. You know, these flash modes come in real handy, and rear sync comes in pretty handy too, because you may really want to use that one day. Oh yeah, rear sync is fun sometimes. You can use it in parties too. It's really fun. Now, you see that said flash mode, that is in section 11, tab 1. We're still in tab 1. Now, you're probably wondering, well, everything we've been looking at so far in tab 1, has it been only photography that this has to do with? Because there's another camera that looks identical to it sitting right next to it in 2. So just keep that in mind, the confusion with the menu system. So we assume that one has to do with photography, one has to do with video. Well, maybe not, because they both look like cameras. And when you go through the menu system, you're wondering, well, what does 1 and what does 2 actually represent? So let's keep going. And just remember, what you've seen so far is a little confusing, I'm telling you. Hey, flash comp, you have that available for you. So if you like the flash to be just a wee bit more than what you're setting it at, just you can set those little micro settings a wee bit less. You know, you can get in there and do that exposure comp, flash comp, and you have exposure comp set here too. Ambient and flash is what I pick. Some people like to pick ambient only because they're shooting a lot of ambient or whatever reason that they're setting it for ambient only. Wireless flash, I usually leave that on. I do a lot of wireless flash. I set triggers up. I do all kinds of things like that. And just to be on the safe side, I'm turning that on just in case. I like Sony. Sometimes Sony would do great and surprise me even without the settings right. So I'm not quite sure how that happens, but hey, I'm just telling you. But I keep it on. Red eye reduction, I keep that off. Even if I could get in there and set that for right now, I would keep that on off at all times. Red eye reduction, yeah, I keep that off. You just shoot a certain way with a certain flash and you won't have red eye reduction, you know, especially if you shoot off camera. But we'll talk about that later. We'll talk about off camera flashing on a different video. My white balance, I have it set at automatic, although white balance can be changed again, just like ISO, in many different areas of the camera. You don't necessarily have to go into the menu system to set your white balance. There's other places where you can go. Priority set in automatic white balance. So if you go into automatic white balance, it's going to have a setting. It's going to have a standard. If you go into priority, it's going to ask you, hey, are we ambient? Do you want white? Do you want just standard? I keep it at standard. Okay. You can get in. You can get into that and really play with that and see what it really looks like when you change it. And I think you're going to have a lot of fun. I don't play with dynamic range optimizer too much, DRO. I just kind of set it a way that I've heard about. There is this. I'm shooting slightly HDR, although I wish I could show you on a different video. I wish I can. I probably can. But there's a setting here, as you can tell, like I showed you in another video. Whenever you see any option on the menu system and it has 2 arrows on the side like that, that gives you an option to hit this wheel and go left and right. That means there's other options there. So right now you see it set at DRO and it's set for the option of LV2. Let's go down here and see what else. We have LV1, automatic. And of course, you know, it is indicative of the dynamic range optimizer being an automatic. LV5, and all of these mean something. So as you put if I put a lens on here and was aiming out, it would show you slight differences in the way that LV2 versus LV5 looks, things like that. So we'll just keep that in mind. Again, that's the DRO or automatic HDR, high dynamic range setting. And again, you can turn that off or you can turn it on. And if you turn it on, again, you have your options there where you can set your settings. And again, I keep mine at, you know, LV2 in most cases. The creative style is kind of interesting. So I keep mine at standard, okay? But you can get in here and you can change that. Now, I know a lot of photographers out there that do not like to shoot in standard. And sometimes I don't like to shoot in standard. It really kind of depends on what type of environment. So standard is the default, okay? Although you can shoot vivid, where your colors are going to be, hey, vivid, you know, everything is going to stand out really, really strong. Again, that may work against you in post-production, possibly. So again, shoot raw And if you can, if you want to shoot standard, but vivid is nice, okay? Don't get me wrong. I hope you like the colors, but many people are gonna love you when you say you're setting your camera at neutral. Neutral is a way that you can, hey, neutrally bring your image in and kind of enhance those neutral reds to a richer red. You can, those neutral oranges to kind of a medium orange if you wanted to. You know what I mean? You can kind of get in there and have a little bit more leeway or control, let's say, with what you're doing in post-production, more so when you have it in neutral than standard or vivid. Again, you have clear, which is an option, which I've never actually seen. You have deep as an option. You have light as an option. Wow, look at this, portrait as an option, which I have seen. I don't use portrait. Maybe I should sometimes. I probably could and see what it comes out like, right? Landscape is always good. Sunset is an option. Really nice. It'll kind of give you that look. Nighttime, you know. Hey, let's flip through these. You know, ever popular, right? Sepia. And look at all these standards. And these are just the things that are just in there from the beginning. Really kind of nice. And there again is my standard. I'm going to leave it at standard for right now, okay? Because I have some other things in play that may be helping it out. Let's go backwards a little bit. And what we want to look at now is picture profile. Now, picture profile is going to come in really handy, I guess, if you're a photographer, but super handy if you're a videographer. Now, picture profile is like this. Let's go inside. Now, picture profile, I'm going to try my best to explain it, okay? I'm not going to be the absolute best, but right now I have picture profile off, so we're not using any picture profile. Now, what a picture profile is going to do is it's going to accept the image that you're seeing through this camera, and it's going to set that image up to look a certain way from the beginning with some special settings, okay? So we have PP1, PP2, PP3, and you're probably wondering, what do all these things mean? These are all picture profile settings that you can set up, okay? PP9, PP10, and you probably notice, okay, the screen is kind of changing it slightly in hue, just a little bit every time. Why is that? Why is that? So let's go into one of these. I'm going to pick PP4 or picture profile 4. And what I'm going to do, you see that little arrow there? I'm going to go ahead and hit this little button here. We're going to go over that way. So that means you can go into PP4 or picture profile 4. You can set your settings a certain way, like your black levels, right? I can click in there and I can change my black levels to be more profound or less profound. Let's go back. I can change my gamma or the way it's actually coming across. Or look at this. Let's look at the kind of gamma setup that I can actually set up. Okay. Whenever you're shooting video, there are several different types of picture profiles that are very well known in the video industry that you shoot initially in. Okay, let's say that again. So initially when you're shooting that footage, boom, you want it in one of these. Now, why do you want it? Because it's going to look a certain way to where, and you have to kind of play with it in post-production with different footages and different settings, and get that footage and put it in and color and get things the way you want it. Try to get the color exactly the way you want it to get a certain type of look and feel. Okay. And then add your LUTs and whatever else I'm adding. I'm talking gibberish here to some people, but you add these little color, let's say filters, so to speak, let's say, to the image after you color it. And it gives you that cinematic, hopefully, look that you're really looking for based on how you shot it initially. So I'm going to tell you, I only know a couple of things and I'm not going to go into it too deep, but I would say Cine 4 is big time and S-Log 3 big time. are used in the movie industry. A whole lot. You're going to hear a lot of people using Cine 4 for whatever reasons. And you're going to hear a lot of people using all of these. Okay, all of them, seriously. But the big ones that I know of for sure is going to be Cine 4 and S-Log 3. S-Log 3 is going to look crazy when you shoot it. It's going to look so washed out, and it's like, why would anyone use this? Why? It's when you look at the footage initially, that's what you're going to say. But once you start coloring it and doing that in post-production, you're going to know why they have it shot like that. So S-Log 3 is a really big deal. I don't want to expound on that right now. We'll talk about that maybe later on, somewhere down the line. So when you hit the menu button, it takes you back another section. You're still in the setup area where you can go in here and you can set up all of these things the way you want them to be. You know, it's a lot of detail. You can see that. Isn't that amazing? All of this you can do, and you can set these settings up. So I can get in here and say, no, I want to shoot S-Log. Bam, I want to shoot S-Log on this. I want my black levels to be stupid. I want to be right here. I'm gonna keep my black gamma kind of narrow. I'll say level by level 2. I'm gonna keep it kind of narrow. And you know what I'm saying? I'm back up. You know what I'm saying? You can get in there. You can do all these crazy settings and get in there. And then let's hit the menu button again. And now, right now I have PP4 set up. If I went backwards another one, it's going to show the picture profile still off. But if I was to go in here and go to PP4 and hit this button, it's going to tell me I'm in picture profile 4 now. So everything I shoot would look like whatever I just set up in that setting. Right now, I'm going to go in here and we're going to go ahead and go back to turning off the picture profile because I don't really need that on right now. We're just going to be doing a lot of stills for the next week or so. So I want to make sure I keep that on off right now. By the way, you can shoot stills in S-Log 3 and with all of those settings on there, you can keep that picture profile while you're shooting stills. Yes, and your stills will look like that. So you can go ahead and do that, and you can color correct them. And yes, you can make your pictures look like the actual motion picture that you think you're going to put out if you want to. So just letting you know, it's a possibility you can do that. Let's go to the next page, okay? Because we're still in section 12. We're about to end it, and out of 14, and we're still in the first tab. Can we believe that? Let's go to 13. So focus magnifier is kind of cool. So let's say you wanted to do some manual focus, right? And so you get in there, you hold the camera, and you get up there and you want to adjust the lens, right? And you want to adjust the lens. When you adjust that lens, that focus on that lens, focus magnifier, if it's on, what it's going to do is it's going to, if you, or whatever, you can hit focus magnifier. And what this will do, if I had a lens on here, which I wish I did, it will actually zoom in like really, really close on that subject that I'm actually pointing at. It'll zoom in super close. I can sit there and focus and get it locked on perfect, right? And here is the time. So I can actually set it to where there's no limit how long that thing will sit there. I can actually leave it there at close up, keep it, lock it on focus, right? And then hit the button and then go to take the shot whenever I want to take that shot, to where if I hit this button here, I may only have 5 seconds to get my adjustment right, look at it, and then get ready to decide if I want to take that shot, or 2 seconds. When you play with it, you'll see where I actually have mine at no limit, because 5 seconds may not be long enough to make my own mind up if I want to take this shot or not yet. You know what I mean? So I'll just keep it on no limit. That's just me. Also, initial focus magnification is just saying, hey, how much focus do you actually want on this thing from the beginning? Now, I could go way up to, 6 times, magnets. It's just, that's a bit much. I just figure I'll just zoom in a bit right there. That's all I really need to see. Okay. Autofocus again. I keep this on. anything that has to do with autofocus, I turn it on. I just kicked the doggone tripod. Right? Let's talk about peaking settings. So this is actually kind of cool. When you click on this, peaking setting, I use this all the time. Now, I won't be able to show you what it looks like too much right now, but let's just say you're doing manual focus, right? And you're shooting this thing at, let's say f1.8. F1.8, very shallow depth of field, right? And let's say you're trying to shoot a basketball, and you're pretty close up on that basketball, right? You're pretty close up on that basketball. Let's just imagine that, right? So you're only going to see certain amount of that basketball in focus, and the rest of it is going to be out of focus, right? Because you're shooting at 1.8. You're real close up on that basketball, and if there's enough light in that picture, well, which it should be, you're going to see some of that ball in focus and some of that ball out of focus. Understood? Well, with this thing turned on, peaking, you will be able to see these, as I put, red lines. You can actually pick what color you want the lines to be. You can have these red lines show up all over the ball, in the little crevices and in the little pixels of the ball, and everything shows up exactly where you're in focus. And wherever you don't see the little red squiggly lines and stuff, you know that's where it starts getting faded. You start seeing the red peaking color start fading. It lets you know exactly where your focus is, and this works when you're in manual focus. So manual focus is a whole lot of fun when you're using a Sony mirrorless camera, because not only are you going to be pinpoint focused, but with this peaking on, you're going to know exactly what part of the ball is in focus before you even shoot it. You're even going to know how strong the focus is before you even hit the trigger. It's amazing. I love peaking, and I recommend that everyone turn that on. You will be glad that you did. Let's move on to the final section of tab 1, which is section 14. Okay? Anti-flicker shoot. Okay? I don't use this. I don't know what anti-flicker shoot is. And just being honest with you. So I just leave it off. I don't want it on. I haven't had any problems with my shots. And I guess maybe I better do some research again and try to figure out what that is, because it may be a benefit. Who knows? Face registration is really cool. So let me tell you how that works. So let's say you're at a party, a wedding, let's just say, okay? And you definitely want to make sure the bride is in focus, right? You want to make sure the bride's mother is in focus. And let's say you want to make sure that groom is in focus. If nothing else, those three people had better be in focus on every shot. What if you're thinking that, right? How do you do that? Well, let's say at the beginning of the day, beginning of the wedding, before everybody starts kicking in and everyone is nice and relaxed, you take a face shot of the bride, a face shot of the groom, and a face shot of the mother-in-law, and you face registration it. So you put in there, you get in there, and you literally hit new registration, and you register that face. And what's going to happen is this camera is going to memorize that face and the other face and the other face. And what's going to happen is every time you take a picture anywhere around them and it sees them, it's going to make sure that those people are in focus. Now let's go even further. Let's say you're doing a group shot, A big group is there at the wedding. Big group. They're in that group. Well, when that camera gets ready to take that shot and focuses on that group, it's going to recognize those three people. And it's going to go, whoa, I'm going to make sure he over here on the left is in focus. I'm going to make sure she over there in the right is in focus. And I'm going to make sure this other lady right here in the middle is in focus. If nobody else is in focus, those people will be in focus. Isn't that amazing? That's what that is. So if you happen to run across that, I would say go ahead and turn that bad boy on, because I think you're going to have a lot of fun with that. Yeah. And I just have it on for registering. So right now, I think I'm ready. That is section 14 of tab number 1. Wow. That took a long time, didn't it? And all we did was cover what I know of tab 1. Now, the next video, we're going to tackle tab number 2. And maybe you can tell me, hey, why did they set it up like this with 1 and 2? We'll talk later.